Back in November, 22-year-old Matthew Riggins told his girlfriend he was going to Barefoot Bay in Florida to commit a few burglaries with a friend. Authorities received calls about two suspicious men dressed in black creeping around the back of homes. When police came to investigate, Riggins jumped into the nearby lake to hide from police. A resident claimed he hid in the wrong place. Unbeknownst to Riggins, an 11-foot alligator was also hiding in that very same lake. The gator attacked Riggins, and he drowned. He was reported missing the next day, but his body wasn't recovered for 10 days when the Brevard County Sheriff's divers recovered his remains. The alligator, which is the actual alligator in the picture, was found with Riggins' hand and foot still in the animal's stomach. Since the gator had been aggressive towards others before, it was euthanized upon discovery. "26-year-old Nicole Visey, from upstate New York, is accused of helping her 39-year-old boyfriend, Stephen Howells, of kidnapping and sexually abusing Amish children. The couple would lure the children into their car with puppies, and then take them to their home, where they would drug them before filming and sexually abusing the children. The couple had a dominant, submissive relationship, with Howells being the master and Visey being the slave. Visey's attorney argued for a lesser sentence because she had signed a service agreement with Howells that stated she was totally belonged to him, mind, body, and soul. Prosecutors argued that she was a willing participant. She sought out the relationship, and even bragged to others about the bite marks and bruises that Howells would leave behind on her body. She is also seen in the videos playing on her phone or using her laptop while Howells is abusing children right next to her in the bed. She never protests, and other times, she even actively participates in the abuse of the young Amish girls. Prosecutors will seek the maximum prison sentence for both Howells and Visey. Two 20-year-old men from Pontiac, California, have been arrested for robbing and beating a 23-year-old victim with cerebral palsy in a stairwell Sunday morning. They relentlessly punch and stomp the disabled man while filming the incident on the victim's own cell phone. They were caught after they posted the following video onto their Facebook pages, as well as the victims. Warning: the video may be upsetting to some viewers. Sound has been removed due to excessive use of profanities. This story contains graphic description of animal abuse. Skip ahead if sensitive. Bradley Boley is a 60-year-old Texas man who was charged with cruelty to animals. His 2-month-old Chihuahua, named Buddy, apparently nipped at the man, and Boley beat the animal hard. Then he placed its kennel on top of a working stove. It's not known if the puppy was playing when it bit Boley or not. Boley, who was angered, left the animal on the stove to burn. Boley's friend, Jared Foote, was asked if the animal suffered, and he told the court, yes, very much, more than any animal I have ever seen in my entire life. The puppy was brought to a vet, but had to be euthanized because its injuries were just too severe. He continued, his body temperature was so hot that he was covered in plastic. Melted plastic. The arresting officer failed to give a Miranda warning at the scene, so much of the evidence may be dismissed from the case, including the burnt kennel. On Tuesday, Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio said he could not guarantee the public safety from mass shootings or similar acts of terror. The sheriff, who is known as the toughest sheriff in America, urged the 250,000 Arizona residents who have a permit to carry concealed weapons to help keep the peace by being vigilant in cases where there are large crowds and someone pulls out a gun to start shooting indiscriminately, like the terrorist attacks in Paris, France. "28-year-old Syed Farouk and his 27-year-old wife, Tashin Malik, who went on a shooting rampage at an office Christmas party, were believed to have been married in Saudi Arabia earlier in the year. The Muslim couple, who massacred 14 people and injured 17 more before being shot dead by police, may have been prevented from committing this horrendous act in California if a neighbor had reported what he saw throughout the prior week. Investigators spoke with a neighbor who witnessed several Middle Eastern men visiting Farouk's house over the course of the week prior to the slaughter, but he did not want to report the suspicious activity for fear of being called a racist and that he may be profiling the suspect, and didn't wish to appear as not politically correct. An 18-year-old in Massachusetts was arrested for shooting and killing 66-year-old cab driver Donald Delpina for a $6.50 fare. Delpina drove 2 passengers to a remote location when 18-year-old Alexander Mills shot the cab driver in the back of the head. The two got out of the car and Mills shot him again. Mills and the unidentified 16-year-old accomplice then tried to drive off in the taxi, but they hit a curve, which triggered a dash cam to take a video of both of them. They tried to use Delpina's credit card later that night. Delpina was a proud veteran of the Vietnam War, and he spent his time volunteering to help other veterans. Sometimes you just can't even make this stuff up. On Thursday, December 3rd, 19-year-old Bud Weiser was arrested for trespassing and resisting arrest. Mr. Weiser crashed his car and hopped the fence of a local brewery. He struggled with security guards and refused to leave, so the police were called. You probably have already guessed which brewery Mr. Weiser was trespassing against. Yes, it's true. 19-year-old Bud Weiser was actually trespassing on the Budweiser brewing facility in St. Louis. On Friday, a 47-year-old Georgia mom was arrested for scrubbing her 12-year-old son's face with a Brillo pad. Veridiana Erbscorn did not approve of her son wearing eye makeup and dyeing his hair red, so she attempted to remove the makeup from the boy's face with soap and a Brillo pad. The boy's sibling called police, and the mom was arrested when police found the freshly used Brillo pad with makeup. An unnamed woman was the victim of a stabbing at the Miami Beach Convention Center. A woman named Sayan Zhao followed the victim around the art show and allegedly kept bumping into her. Police say when the victim confronted Zhao about her aggressive behavior, Zhao pulled out an X-Acto knife and stabbed the woman in the neck on the right side without any provocation. Bystanders believed the stabbing was some kind of a performance art and did not realize that they had witnessed a real stabbing and an attempted murder. The attacker was arrested shortly after the incident. and the victim was rushed to a nearby hospital and is expected to make a full recovery. This story contains extreme animal cruelty. Skip ahead if you are sensitive. A group of teenagers in Margate, England, tortured a small mixed breed puppy for hours. They lighted an aerosol can on fire and burned the puppy's face and eyes, setting fire to the animal. They fed the dog drugs, broke several of its bones just for fun. An animal cruelty officer said it was the most disturbing case she had ever dealt with. Miraculously, the tiny animal survived the ordeal. A 57-year-old Florida woman sped off from the scene of an accident that she had caused on Sunday. Kathy Bernstein hit both a van and a truck with her black Ford Escape. The driver of the van Bernstein hit told police her vehicle was struck by a black Ford and destroyed the Christmas present she had bought. Apparently, Bernstein was unaware of the Ford's Sync 911 system. The safety feature installed in her vehicle automatically calls the police when an accident has occurred where airbags are deployed. While on the phone with dispatch, Bernstein lied to the operator, saying a car pulled out in front of her, but there was no accident. To which the operator responded, "Your car would not have called us if someone just pulled in front of you." Police went to Bernstein's residence and saw the Ford Escape she was driving had a crushed front end with silver paint from the van she hit still on the vehicle. Bernstein continued to lie, saying that she hit a tree. Bernstein was then charged with hit and run. In December, a Baltimore court released documents about a bizarre altercation, which ended up with 3 participants being severely burned. 28-year-old Christopher Harrison was charged with attempted murder. Police responded to a call for a car fire, but when they arrived, they saw 2 men who were set on fire with gasoline. Corporal Sean Vincent from the Baltimore County Police Department said, one victim was burned over 60% of his body. The second victim over 90% of his body, to the point that his clothing was completely burned off of him. Harrison had an altercation with his co-worker and victim, David Campbell, earlier at work. Later, Harrison ran out of gas and had to walk to a gas station with his friend, Sean Scariazzi, who was also carrying a gas can back to the vehicle. Campbell spotted Harrison walking on the road, so he walked up to him and punched him in the face. Harrison then douses Campbell with the gasoline that he was carrying and lights him on fire, also injuring himself in the course of the attack. Campbell flounders around in a panic while on fire and knocks into Scariazzi, who then also goes up in flames. On Tuesday, December 8th, an off-duty New York Police Department officer went to meet 2 men he found on Craigslist who were selling a used white BMW. The 2 men pretended to haggle with the officer until one of the men furnished a handgun and stole the officer's wallet. The police officer then pulled his own gun and fired off several shots, hitting the suspect who pulled the gun on him while the other man escaped in the white BMW and is still at large. The wounded man was rushed off to Jamaica Hospital, but died from his injuries. Likewise, in November, a man tried to rob a detective who was investigating a rental scam on Craigslist. That suspect also was shot. Brandon Weathers, a 39-year-old Nebraska man, was in court on Tuesday for allegedly raping his 13-year-old foster child. The girl told the court she was raped vaginally and orally more times than she could count over the course of 6 months. Child Protection Services removed the child and her 10-year-old sister from the home when a summer camp counselor heard the victim confess the crime to her sister while at camp. The counselor immediately contacted police about the crime. Weathers could face up to 30 years in prison if convicted. Weathers did have a criminal past, but Child Services explained a person could still become a foster parent under state law if it has been 5 years since a felony. The little girl became pregnant last year, but had a miscarriage shortly after. DNA evidence has proven Weathers to be the father. Weathers, who is defending himself, told the court he did not have sex with his foster child, but instead he used a syringe to help the girl achieve her lifelong dream of becoming pregnant. On Friday, first-degree murder charges were brought against Kansas bail bondsman Michael Jones and his wife, Heather Jones. Police were at the couple's home last month for a domestic disturbance when they learned that their 7-year-old son was missing. They reportedly found human remains on the farm of a juvenile who was reportedly fed to pigs. Investigators said it was one of the worst scenes they had ever experienced. Jones also reportedly beat his son in the past. Authorities removed the couple's 6 other children, all girls, ranging in the age from 1 to 10, from the home, and they say they are all now healthy and fine. On Tuesday, December 15th, an 89-year-old man was driving in St. Petersburg, Florida, when a 12-year-old boy, riding a bicycle, approached the man at a stop to tell him his tire was going flat. When the man got out of his car to inspect the tire, the boy hopped in and stole the vehicle, driving away, leaving the old man on the side of the road. The theft was caught on video surveillance, and a police officer was able to recognize the boy from past dealings. The 12-year-old had been arrested more than 20 times prior to this incident. "22-year-old Aaron Rice was arrested on Sunday the 13th for retail theft, giving a false name, resisting arrest with violence, and battering a police officer when she escaped. She was again apprehended on Tuesday the 15th in a Deltona, Florida home of a 72-year-old man, where she broke into the home, washed her clothes, put on the man's pajamas, and decided to take a nap in his bedroom. Burglary and petty theft have now been added to her charges." Tuesday the 15th, authorities in Spain discovered almost $400 million of cocaine shipped in from Colombia. The cocaine was disguised as shipping pallets. The smugglers molded the drug to look like actual pallets and then stuffed them in charcoal. A total of 11 members of the international drug smuggling ring have been arrested. A 13-year-old boy was charged on Tuesday the 15th for stabbing an 18-year-old girl at a nudist colony in Florida. It is unclear why the boy stabbed the girl. Residents say it was unprovoked. The girl was okay and continued a journey by bicycle down to Miami after the incident. A resident said that the girl was deeply concerned about her attacker's welfare. The boy was charged with aggravated battery with a deadly weapon and is at a juvenile detention center in Palm Beach County, according to the sheriffs. On Sunday, the 13th, 24-year-old Vidal Navas of Houston, Texas, thought he was being extremely romantic when he stopped traffic on busy I-45 to propose marriage to his girlfriend. Navas posted a now-deleted video of him blocking the traffic for about a half a minute while he gets on one knee to pop the big question. He captioned his video with, "When you shut down one of the biggest and busiest freeways in the entire country, I-45, and ask your girl if she wants to marry you, that moment is priceless." Drivers were not amused, and police agreed. He was charged with a misdemeanor for the act. On Wednesday the 16th, 24-year-old Patrick Rempe attempted to break into a Florida jail. He said he wanted to visit his friends who were in jail, so he decided to ram his car into the front door, shattering the glass. When that attempt was unsuccessful, he tried to crash through a fence. He was apprehended while climbing the fence when he got tangled up into the razor wire at the top. Rempe was treated for injuries from the crash and the razor wire. A county sheriff explained Rempe was high on the synthetic designer drug Flocka at the time. Anna Yoka, a 31-year-old Tennessee woman, was arrested for first-degree attempted murder on December 9th. She was 24 weeks pregnant with an unwanted child, so she decided to perform a self-abortion. She got into a bathtub filled with water and used a wire coat hanger to try to kill the unborn baby. When the water began to fill up with blood, she panicked and called her boyfriend. She was taken to a medical facility and ended up giving birth to a 1.5-pound baby boy. The baby suffered severe injuries from Yoka repeatedly stabbing the infant with the wire hanger. Doctors say the baby will survive, but will most likely be on medication and have to receive oxygen for the rest of his life because of the damage done to his eyes, heart, and lungs. In Christchurch, New Zealand, a not-so-bright thief was caught on security footage stealing $6.77 from a tip jar in a local restaurant. He committed the petty crime only after he had already paid $9.82 for food, which he left behind. On December 11th, Dawn Meikle, a 55-year-old Florida woman, was arrested for allegedly beating her husband while he slept. According to Dawn, she became very upset when her husband continuously passed gas while sleeping in their bed. She began elbowing and kicking him until he actually fell out of the bed. He eventually got back in, but it wasn't long before the man was tooting again. Extremely angered, Dawn began kicking, hitting, and scratching her husband. He had several scratches on his body, and his shirt was ripped in 3 places. So responding officers arrested the woman, and she now faces misdemeanor charges. She also suffered a busted lip, but she said that it only happened when her husband tried to restrain her, and it was accidental. "59-year-old father, George Pickering II, took matters into his own hands when doctors declared his son was clinically brain dead from a stroke he suffered earlier in the year. The man's son was in a long coma when he was deemed to be brain dead and ordered to be weaned off of life support by doctors who had permission from his ex-wife. The outraged father forced his way into the Texas hospital with a gun, and he began a 3-hour standoff with workers and police. He said he knew his 27-year-old son George III wasn't ready to die. During the standoff, the father said his son had squeezed his hand 3 times on command, proving that he wasn't brain dead. Pickering's other son was able to talk his dad into surrendering the gun and himself to authorities. Doctors agreed to keep the stroke victim alive for a time. Luckily, the son awoke from the coma and is now fine. He said that his dad had broke the law, but it was for all the right reasons, out of love. He says that he wouldn't be alive today if it were not for his father's actions. The charges were reduced on Pickering, and he was released earlier in the month. On December 24th, in San Diego, a 39-year-old man walked up to a group of people and asked to bum a cigarette. Shortly after, a woman walked up to the man and told him to get away from her stuff. Then, she pulled out a knife and stabbed the man in the neck and ran away. He was treated for his injury and was released after it was determined to not be life-threatening. The woman who stabbed the man was described as about 400 pounds with a beard. The hunt is still on for a 400-pound bearded woman. On December 20th, a 10-day mystery in the Bronx of New York began to unravel when 51-year-old Alexis Feliciano was apprehended for allegedly murdering his own 2-month-old infant. 31-year-old Danielle White admitted to the police that her boyfriend was the killer of their tiny baby, born just weeks earlier. Sources say Feliciano was jealous that his girlfriend was paying too much attention to the baby and not to him. White said she heard him scream at the newborn to shut the F up, followed by bangs and thuds. The baby was badly beaten with bruises on his face and neck and was having difficulty breathing after Feliciano strangled him. White says she tried to splash water on the infant in an effort to wake the baby up, but he was unresponsive. Feliciano said, "F it, the baby's gone, and if you're going to become a liability, I'm going to kill you too." Feliciano reportedly beat his girlfriend prior to the killing, once even giving her a black eye, which she foolishly did not report. He had 15 prior arrests as well, including rape and drug charges. White was allegedly afraid of him, so she went along with his plan to cover up this sick murder. Feliciano shoved the infant's lifeless body into a plastic bag and then stuffed him into a duffel bag. A security cam shows Feliciano storing the duffel bag in the trunk of a car about 11:17 p.m. on December 10th, the same day that he killed the baby. The next day they went to a motel in Putnam County for a 2-day stay and buried the baby in nearby Dover. The infant was left in a shallow grave with a makeshift cross of twigs and one single rose, courtesy of the mother, assumedly. Feliciano told her she would be buried there too, but she was lucky he couldn't do it because police would more easily identify her body than the baby's. White, who was a school teacher, devised a plan to escape the apartment when they returned. She told Feliciano she was going to pick up her check from work and didn't come back. She later overdosed on prescription drugs in an attempted suicide and was admitted to a local hospital on Thursday the 17th, and then admitted to a psychiatric ward where she made her confession to a doctor, who in turn told police. White will not be charged with any wrongdoing, according to the police. Feliciano, who's a pizza deliverer, was arrested on Sunday and charged with second-degree murder.